I am not omnipotent. Welcome back to Thoughts in the Crossfire. I'm Andy, and today I want to talk about omnipotence and omniscience, two attributes that are frequently assigned to God. Now, omnipotence has a lot of objections to it, the most famous one being, can God make a rock so heavy that even he cannot lift it? And William Craig dismisses it like this.
The classic example is that can God make a rock too heavy for him to lift?
Right, and that would be like a married bachelor. It's a self-contradictory description.
Now, this was in the context of having a couple of previous examples, the square circle and the married bachelor, which he dismissed as illogical, not even real notions. They're just grammatical constructs, and that's true of those things, but creating a rock too heavy for you to lift is an entirely logical notion. It's not internally contradictory, but it is rather infeasible and intangible. What is what I did at the beginning of this video, truthfully saying I am not omnipotent. An omnipotent being can't do that. So if God is omnipotent, God can't do that. But I can, and you can. You can do it right now. Go ahead, right now. You just did something that God can't. One way that apologists try to get around this is by saying that God can do anything that is in his nature. So it is not in his nature to lie, which is why he cannot lie. If we're talking about the Christian God, the Bible says that God cannot lie several times. So does that mean he's not omnipotent? Well, it's not in his nature, okay? Maybe that's compelling. But hang on a second. That applies to anything, not just anyone, anything. It is not within the nature of a rock to, out of its own will, write a 5-paragraph essay. And rocks can't do that, but it's not in their nature, so that's not an objection to a rock's omnipotence. And that applies to literally anything. You know, that's saying it can do what it can do. It's a meaningless phrase. And so pretty much any definition of omnipotence that keeps to the core principle of what omnipotence is supposed to mean ends up being logically contradictory. Now, one definition that actually does work and kind of gets to a place where you could say a god is that, kind of, is the ability to manipulate matter, energy, space, and time to any extent. And that works, and you could think of a god figure being able to do that if you count creation as manipulation. And why not? Okay, it's logically possible. There aren't any logical objections to it, but that's not really what omnipotence is supposed to mean. Omnipotence is supposed to be the ability to do anything. And that's a lot of power, but not infinite, the ability to do everything. So omnipotence is like a square circle or a married bachelor. It's just a meaningless grammatical construct. Omniscience is actually very similar in that it is also a meaningless grammatical construct, and I'll show you that right now. Although, side note, the fact that omniscience is impossible actually also means that omnipotence is impossible, because omnipotence would include the ability to know everything, but if the ability to know everything is not possible, then the ability to do anything is not possible either. Anyway, omniscience is impossible for a very simple reason. If there's something you don't know, you wouldn't realize it, and you can never be certain of that. Now, you might say, well, what if omniscience is not necessarily absolutely certain knowledge of everything, but it's just, it's just knowledge of everything, Well, hang on a second. Again, that applies to anyone. This time it doesn't apply to rocks, because rocks don't really know things, but it applies to me, it applies to you. We can know everything without absolute certainty. Sure, why not? Okay? I'm very uncertain about lots of things, but I could say I know everything as long as I don't have to be absolutely certain, right? So, again, that applies to anyone unless it's absolute certainty. But if it's absolute certainty, then you can never have it, because you can never be absolutely certain that there's nothing that you don't know. So ironically, it's actually possible to know everything except that you are omniscient. but you don't know if there's something else beyond that, and you never can be absolutely certain. There you go. Omnipotence, omniscience, all of that stuff. It's funny because the God of the earth is clearly not omnibenevolent, and omnipotence and omniscience are both impossible. So it's not looking too good for a God who's supposed to have all three of those attributes. Regardless, this has been Thoughts in the Crossfire. Thank you so much for watching. I think next episode we'll probably do free will and nihilism, and maybe talk a little bit about how to make assumptions to inform your actions. But yeah, we'll get into that next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.